The Amex Gold is one of the most popular cards on the market right now, even after it went through a pretty big overhaul earlier this year. Amex raised the annual fee to $325, added a bunch of credits, and generally made the card a lot more difficult to justify for a lot of people. With that in mind, in today's video, I'm going to discuss why I applied for this $325 Amex Gold card and why it makes sense for me even more so post-refresh. And we'll also discuss some issues I ran into when I was trying to get approved for this card, and less so for the card itself and more so for the welcome offer. So the Gold is one of many different cards in my sort of blitz strategy that I'm employing for the rest of this year and into early 2025. I had a lot of cards on my list and I had to get them in a very specific order. I had just wrapped up the welcome offer for the United Explorer thanks to some very well-timed spend that I had lined up, and I was ready to move into applying for the Gold. Now, speaking of welcome offers, the most obvious factor for getting the Gold is, of course, that intro offer you can get, and it ranges anywhere from 60,000 points all the way up to 100,000 right now at time of recording, and I was able to snag that top offer. I got really, really lucky, and we'll get more into how I was able to get that offer and how I almost didn't get any offer at all. And so beyond that welcome offer, I've definitely been thinking about the Gold for several months now. It just fits my lifestyle super, super well. Living in a large metro area, I have access to a bunch of services that I use on a regular basis. I take a rideshare or two every single month. I order food once or twice a month, and I do actually go for Dunkin' once or twice a month as well. And so for better or for worse, I'm gonna be spending my money on those things anyway, so it would be nice to get a little bit of a reward back through the Amex Gold. Now, the Gold's annual fee of $325 is definitely not great, that's for sure. But because of how well this card works for me, I'm able to get all of that back and more just by taking full advantage of all these perks and benefits. And so first off, the Gold is a very popular choice for grocery and dining spend because of its 4x category for both. The grocery category is going to work in the United States and gets you 4x on up to $25,000 annually. And as a household of two, we don't approach that number at all, so it works out great for us. And then for dining, it's worldwide for a cap of $50,000. If I'm spending $50K on dining every year, something has either gone terribly wrong or I have won the lottery. So not an issue there either, but definitely nice to have a better number than what I'm currently getting. Pretty much cap out at 3x points across all of my cards. And now my partner and I spend about $500 a month on groceries, and then we also have about $200 in dining expenses for a grand total of $700 on these two multipliers every single month. So multiply that by 4 and we'll be earning 2,800 membership rewards points every month, or 33,600 every single year. If we value this super conservatively at 1 cent per point, that is $336, which has already made back the annual fee and a tiny bit more, but of course we can do better with transfer partners and things like that, but I like to keep it at 1 cent per point just when I am valuing the card to see if it's worth keeping long term. The card also has a 3x multiplier for flights, either booked directly or through Amex Travel, and this is a nice bonus for me. I have some other cards that also get me 3x, like the Altitude Reserve, for example. I do eventually want to add the Platinum for 5x, but in the meantime, this will be nice to have. Now, beyond those main multipliers, the card also offers $120 in Uber Cash, which is deposited as $10 monthly increments. This is nice for me. I'll take full advantage of it. I will probably use it for ride shares just because I don't own a car and I live in a big city, so I'm able to take full advantage of that. But you can also use it for Uber Eats orders if that's your thing. There's also that $120 credit to use for American Express's dining partners, those being Grubhub, Cheesecake Factory, goldbellywine.com, and Five Guys. And I would definitely use this, of course, probably for Grubhub. That just seems to be the trend. But my partner does like Cheesecake Factory, so on the off chance that we are there and we haven't used the credit already, we could use it up that way. And yeah, this is a little bit of a pain to use. You know, you have to go through one of these services. It's not for anything, and you have to keep track of it every month because it is use it or lose it in the form of $10 every single month. So those were the old credits that everybody knows. But there's also now 2 new credits that were added as a part of the card refresh and, well, let's face it, a big increase in the annual fee. There's now a $84 a year Dunkin' credit, which is given out in the form of $7 statement credit every single month. And I'd use this completely. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I do a Dunkin' run once or twice a month, and living right next to a Dunkin', like, this credit works out perfectly for me. Of course, if you use this out in somewhere like Seattle, you're probably gonna have a tough time finding a Dunkin'. Like, that's Starbucks territory, so I can see how this credit is largely useless for a good portion of the country. And then lastly, there's also now a $100 Resi credit. So for the first half of the year, you'll get $50, and then you'll get another $50 around mid-year in July. So you can use these for Resi gift cards or directly at a Resi restaurant, but this doesn't really move the needle too much for me. I have never been to a Resi restaurant, but I am open to doing this just because it's not something that's going to make or break the card for me. Those first 3 credits are really the driving force for this card for me personally. I'm going to have prepaid for all of these services anyway and made back that annual fee, and anything above that, like this Resi credit, is just a bonus. Now, there are also some benefits for this card that I am less excited about, either because I'd never use them or because they overlap with a lot of my other cards. And the first one here is going to be the 2x multiplier for hotels booked through Amex Travel, as well as a $100 experiences credit for stays of 2 nights or longer through Amex's hotel collection. You know, I'll probably never use these, so that's why I can't include them in my valuation of the card. There's also a baggage insurance plan perk for up to $500 in reimbursements for checked baggage or $1,200 for a carry-on in case it's lost or damaged or whatever. But I have several cards that have this benefit already, so it really doesn't make or break the card. And now along those same lines, there's also secondary collision and damage waiver insurance, but I also have many cards that offer me primary CDW, so this is not really a perk for me. And then lastly, there's also trip delay reimbursement for delays exceeding 12 hours. It's up to $300 per trip. And while I have cards that will offer me the same reimbursements, but it'll be for 6 hours or more in delays. So I can definitely do better here. Okay, so now that you know why I wanted the gold so badly, let's get right into that application process, and it definitely was not straightforward, guys. I was trying to get a welcome offer of any kind. I obviously wanted to go for the best one, but given my history with American Express, thought I was going to be lucky to get the standard 60,000 point offer. I was originally going to apply for this card alongside the United Explorer at the end of October. As I was going through reconsideration with Chase for that card, I found myself in Amex pop-up jail again. You know, it was pretty disheartening to see myself get thrown back into Amex jail after probably a year. I assume I was still there, but who knows really? I mean, you'll see why later. And so because I was also waiting to hear back from Chase for reconsideration up until November 1st, I decided to put all of my spend on my American Express cards for at least 2 weeks, like every single cent I could put on, just to show American Express that I was at least kind of profitable and that I was going to spend more, say, on like the Amex Gold, which is not like a lie or anything because that card has multipliers that I spend a lot of money through. And so after about 2 weeks, I decided it was time and I applied for the gold. I was dealing with a sort of a time crunch on both sides here because I'd gotten approved for the Explorer and then I had X days before it reported to the credit bureaus, and I wanted American Express to see that I had only gotten one personal card this year before the United Explorer. that being the Altitude Reserve. And after all of that, I don't know how this worked whatsoever, but I was approved for the Amex Gold with the 100,000 membership rewards points offer. No pop-up, nothing of the sort. I couldn't tell you what I had done differently other than putting all of my spend on the cards, but I don't want to say that that is the golden ticket that got me out, because I've seen so many people put a ton of spend on their Amex cards only to stay in pop-up jail. I really do think it is random to a degree, and there is a computer algorithm that American Express has to use that will decide if you are profitable or not. There's some other reports that waiting a month and then applying again will help, and that is a credible report. Shout out to Joe Barretto, did a video on this about a year ago. I think that can work for some people, but at the same time, I guess it really depends on what your sort of like customer profitability score is. And so getting around the pop-up was a mystery, but getting the offer itself was not. All I did was throw in a regular link into an incognito tab, and after a couple of tries, the 100K offer showed up. I tried to go through a referral link at first, but it just would not work. I did the referral link back in the end, like middle of October, and that's when I got the pop-up. So unfortunately, I guess American Express does not want to reward its existing customer base for bringing in more cardholders. As for the application itself, American Express only soft pulled my Experian credit report because I'd already had several credit cards with them before. After you've had your first personal card with Amex, they will not hard pull you for either business or personal cards. And I think that is really underrated, actually. Nobody else really does that right now, and it has allowed me to get more cards, build up my profile a little bit without taking hard inquiries left and right. It's also allowed me to get a lot of good bonuses while I am technically gardening, because I can get Amex business cards that won't report to personal credit and they won't do an inquiry at all. So it's basically as if that card didn't exist. And for reference, in case you are worried about your score for getting approved, I was approved with a 776 FICO, but you definitely don't need it to be that high to get approved for this card. I was approved instantly, and Amex said that my card would arrive in 7 to 10 business days. That was a long time, and I'm an impatient person, so I called them and asked if I could get this expedited. They said, no, sorry, this is not something we do for the Amex Gold, so rather than fight them on it, I decided it would be best to just leave Amex alone, especially because they had already given me that 100K offer. So I'll be getting that card pretty soon. I think it's going to come a little bit earlier though, because I did get an email this morning that said that it was on its way and it would be here in a few days. Well, there you have it, guys. That is my American Express Gold approval and welcome offer journey. I'm so excited to add this card to my wallet, guys. It's one I've wanted to add for at least a year, probably longer, and it really fits my lifestyle super well. Obviously, this card is not for everybody, especially if you can't make good use of the lifestyle perks of the card. So I'm not trying to claim that it's like the best thing ever, because it's the best thing ever for me, but it probably isn't for you. If you want to learn a little bit more about what happened with my United Explorer application, then I suggest you watch this video next. I've been Josh, and thanks for watching. As always, take care, and I'll see you next time.